Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans and where the content is absolutely free. I'm your host tonight. I'm Colin Armstrong. It's episode 205 of the Gersnet Podcast. Yes, we have been going for that long. As I say to you guys, it's not just the pod that we do here at Gersnet. If you get yourself onto the website, you'll find that the forums is there, friendly forums there, lots of good stuff on there. There's articles, stuff like that. There's a history archive on the website as well, so get yourself onto that. We would also ask you to promote the pod, if you like what we're doing, put the word out there, let your mates know, share us on social media, all that kind of stuff. Before I bring my guests in, I will have to mention our partners at Forest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for a long number of years. They also have a brand new suite in the main stand. It's a bit of a cracker from what I hear, and you can book yourself into that if you email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. If you want to know more about Forest Precision Engineering, get onto their website at www.forestpressing.com. I think I've got that right. So now on to my guests. I'll bring you in first. David, how are you doing?
Evening, Colin. Not bad, thanks. Evening to listeners. Good result yesterday, so all's good.
All good. You wouldn't have been affected by the train strike yesterday, were you?
No. But I could possibly have been today, but I canned a trip through east today. But it was just these things kind of happen. I feel for people that were travelling through for the east yesterday and had to leave early. Yeah, there was quite a few. I didn't find out till I was at the game. So apologies to anyone who was looking for the immediate post-match stuff that myself and Ek do. We had planned to do it, and then I found out it was around about half time. I think my wife texted me to say that there was a train strike, and the last train back from Glasgow was at 5:30. So all bets were off then. I had to sort of leave the game 10, 15 minutes early. So I'll have to allude to you two when we get to that point in the agenda when we're talking about the latter stages of the game, because I didn't see it. But quite a lot of Rangers supporters leaving early yesterday, earlier than usual, because of the train strike. So yeah, a wee bit disappointing. Also, Brian Patrick, how are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. I almost think it's the perfect time to talk Rangers. We've had 2 4-0 wins in the space of a week, a Champions League match, but still not all is well, and there's still plenty to discuss and lots of opinions to be had. So I do think this is an incredibly rich time to be talking, both good and bad, about the club.
Yeah, it kind of feels, I don't know, I mean, a few weeks ago, sort of prior to the international break, it did kind of feel doom and gloom when it came to Rangers. I agree, I don't think all is perfect yet, but definitely green shoots to recovery, I think, which we'll go on and discuss. David, I'll come to you first. I mean, the performance yesterday, I thought it was a fairly decent performance, a fairly, how can I put it, routine victory. I think we gave St Mirren a couple of wee sniffs and that might have changed the game if they'd scored at various points. But I mean, overall, as Patrick said, there are 2 4-0s. Second versus third 2 weeks in a row. Hearts last week, we went to Tynecastle, 1-4-0. 1-4-0 yesterday, fairly convincing. And, another thing is we're just chipping away at that goal difference a wee bit. I mean, Celtic were really close to dropping points yesterday. The one thing they're not doing, even although they're still winning, they're not blowing teams away anymore, and we've chipped away, and I think it's down to 8. So essentially, we're down to that game against Dundee United now, that farce of a game. If that hadn't happened, the goal difference would be a lot healthier. So overall, I think that the last 2 weeks have been fairly decent for the club.
Definitely positive in a league sense, Colin. It's a wee bit of a kind of Jekyll and Hyde season thus far for Rangers. The last 2 weeks have been, I don't know, for many fans, I would think have been potential banana skins given the form. And certainly St Mirren of late, and the away trip to Tynecastle. It's always a difficult game, no matter how badly or well Hearts may be playing. And they come away for both games, having scored 4 goals in each occasion. It has been encouraging. Yesterday, obviously getting the goal after 3 minutes was, just what we needed after Tuesday night. So It's. I think it's still a work in progress. I think there's a lot of there's a few positives to take for yesterday's game. Obviously, two guys came into the side. They were looking for minutes. I know Rabbi McClendon played it against Hearts last weekend, but he came back into the starting 11 yesterday. I wasn't surprised that Ryan Kent was dropped. And Fashion Sakala came in, and it just shows you that perseverance can be rewarded, because he got his goal and he set up a goal yesterday. So, we're moving in the right direction. Put it that way.
Patrick, sorry, I was speaking there on mute. Looking at the stats here, 70% possession, 19 shots in total, 80 of those on target, 86% passing rate. Everything fairly positive. I mean, there were a couple of wee blips that I think we'll come on and discuss, and possibly not as fluent a Rangers that we know that they can be. But again, I think it was a fairly routine victory.
Yeah, I think that's probably back-to-back weeks in which I wouldn't say 4-0 flatters us because we were the dominant side in both games. But I do think St Mirren could have had a goal. Not to say that there was a chance they should have scored or a penalty or anything like that, but I think if we play that game 100 times, St Mirren probably score in half the games. We were lucky that Alan McGregor didn't really have much to do, but when he was called upon, he was secure in net, which has been nice. It's a juxtaposition to the relative sort of instability with McLaughlin, which has been sad to see, because whoever puts on the Rangers top, regardless of if you want them to play or someone else, you want to see them do well. But no, I think it was another game in which the performance was better, or the result was better than the performance. We had ebbs and flows, which were really impressive. Like the first 20 minutes were great, and then the last 20 minutes were great, and then the sort of 50-minute sandwich in between were fine. We didn't allow them to capitalise. We controlled possession quite a lot, but it just wasn't as fluent as we wanted to. And I think that was probably represented by sort of the wingers in the first half. Sakala and Matondo both didn't really get much out of it, whether that be because St Mirren packed the midfield quite heavily and sort of put the fullbacks on them one-to-one and didn't give them much space. Also, I don't think Barca should have helped much. They were quite withdrawn, and when they would venture up, they just crossed the ball in really, so they weren't really relieving much pressure. Overlapping, underlapping was quite static, but we got there eventually. I think when Ridvan came on, we'll probably talk about him a bit later, that helped, and Sakala running directly at players and just how the St Mirren players won that play tire also helped. So I do think what is encouraging is the fact that we looked really strong towards the end, and that will give us a bit of momentum. And coupled with, I think, Liverpool's poor performance today, or at least poor result, it does give us something to think and to be optimistic about for the midweek, and also for us continually we won't win 4-0 every week in the league, but it is looking good on that front. And as you mentioned, chipping on the goal difference, because Celtic are still getting the points, but not in the same ferocity or the dominance, both in the performance and the results that they did last year, and they did so for the first 6 or 7 games this season.
David, I mean, when I was coming through on the train yesterday, unaware that they were on strike and finished at 5:30, I should point out. I'm always looking to see the team coming out, so I think the first thing we all noticed was no Ryan Kent, and I put it out there on social media saying, actually, I think this is long overdue. I just think his body language has been a bit poor. His overall performance he's having. I mean, there's been wee flashes here and there. There was an argument to say that, when he got his goal last week, I thought, well, this could spark him, get him going. And someone came back to me when I went out on Twitter yesterday saying, well, it seems a strange time to drop him because, he got the goal last week. But I also think he put in a really timid performance at Anfield on Tuesday night there. So I'm not surprised. I must admit, I think it's long overdue. Although that said, he's got 4 assists this season, so his numbers are already, compared to last season, he got his goal last week, 4 assists. There's maybe an argument to say that quietly he is doing things in the background, but I just think, he's our most expensive player, 7 million. We've just not been getting enough out of him, and I think it was long overdue that this happened.
I concur. I think his performance on Tuesday night was underwhelming. The big games, like going to Anfield, you're looking for your top men to come to the fore. But to be fair to Ryan, he wasn't alone in being lacklustre in his output on Tuesday night. So, no, look, as I said there at the kick-off, I wasn't surprised to see him dropped. I discussing the Tuesday night's game and the Wednesday with various people, I advocated that he should be dropped. He needs cajoled into action. I don't know. I mean, we've discussed him in previous pods, Colin, how he just doesn't seem to be producing to the levels that we suspect he can. His season in the 55 season, he was excellent. Obviously chipped in with a number of goals. And last week was his first goal since March. And he just doesn't seem the same player, whether he's obviously got a lot of things in his mind with regards to signing an extension or maybe leaving the club or whatever the case may be. It just doesn't seem to be firing on all cylinders. Now, I've mentioned the previous pods again that I'm not so sure that the manager's tactic suits him. I don't think he's comfortable in it and being so rigid. I think he's more... he just enjoyed the freedom that Steven Gerrard's tactic afforded him. And there's just something not quite there. So I don't think he can have any complaints. Whether that kind of lights a fire under his derriere and he produces a performance, hopefully Wednesday night, remains to be seen. But there's more to come from him. I just hope that he can click into gear. I don't think it's a legitimate grade to say that he's not trying. I think he is trying. I don't think I agree with you. I think his body language is slightly off. I don't know whether that's maybe he's just annoyed that things aren't coming off for him, and he's maybe letting his head drop, or sort of subconsciously. And people like yourself are picking up on it and going like he's maybe his mind's and his heart's not quite in it. But I don't think he can have any complaints about being benched yesterday. I think that Ravi Matondo, they gave him some food for thought with Ravi's performance. I'm on the fence about that one. I think Ravi Matondo had a particularly good game yesterday, although I think the lad himself is lacking in confidence. But, I'm just hoping it's more hope than anything else that Ryan can turn the corner sooner rather than later, because in the past he's been a big game player, Colin, and we need him. We need him to turn up in big games, and Liverpool obviously get beat by Arsenal today at the Emirates, and I'd like to think that at some point in this kind of run of big games that the real Ryan Kent's finally going to stand up and put on a performance for us.
Yeah, that's what I find frustrating about the whole thing with Ryan Kent. I genuinely feel if he reached his true potential, and we know what that is because, as you say, he's displayed it in a Rangers jersey. I genuinely think that would be enough to make us better than them. You know what I mean? I think, as we'll come on and discuss, I think Kevin Davies looks like he's certainly solidified us at the back. It's just maybe that front, and sort of middle to front where we need to look at improving. And I find it really frustrating. Now, we don't know the reasons. I think we all need to appreciate that football players are human beings. There could be things going on in his life that we don't know about that's affecting his performance. But it has been obvious for a while to me that he's just not been at it. Someone posted a clip the other day there of him scoring a goal a couple of seasons ago, and I was like, what happened to that player? Because he got the ball outside the box, quick 1-2, step overs, past a couple of guys, bang, top corner, and you're just like, it just doesn't seem like he's capable of that at the moment. I don't know if it's tactical, like you said, or personal, or whether he's just not enjoying working for Gio as much as he enjoyed working under Stevie G. I don't know, but I just hope it can be fixed. Patrick, the big handsome bastard up front, Big Cholak's done it again. Let me see, I'm looking at the stats here now. 9 league goals in 10 league games, 13 goals in 16 in overall all competitions. The second goal yesterday, even the first goal is really good because he's anticipating it, Borna takes the shot from outside the box, and he's not standing on his heels. He's moving, looking for something to come his way, and it does. He gets the scraps and he takes it well. But the second goal, the way he cuts inside and finishes with outside his foot, he is. There's no doubt about it. He is a penalty box striker, and I'm enjoying him, I have to say.
Yeah, as am I. I think the first one is sort of the archetypal example of make your own luck. A lot of people, if you're not in good form, will say it was lucky, but I think he's in the sort of predatory form where he's going in the box for everything, every rebound, and we're lucky enough it hits him well. But I think he'll probably claim, and rightfully so, that he positioned himself there on purpose, and his body so that he'd immediately get the rebound. That was a fantastic way to start 5 minutes in, and a true testament to sort of positioning and predatory instincts, which you probably won't see as much from someone like Morelos, and the last time we saw it was likely in the form of a sort of aging Jermaine Defoe. And I think that's been discourse on Twitter recently. Čolak's the best finisher since X, and I think it's obviously Defoe, but some people go back and look at Chris Boyd just for the pure goal numbers. And then the second goal is fantastic. I think obviously he turns the centre back and he sort of travellas at the outside of his foot, but we need to appreciate Sakala taking on a few players and slotting him in. And I think that obviously before he scored the goal, it was great to see, because I not necessarily think he's a confidence player, but no player will play as well as they are, or they should do when they have as little confidence as he has, because he has been frozen out a bit. And I know he touched on how Tav's been helping him sort of stay in sort of the loop and supporting him like as a captain should do, which is fantastic to hear, camaraderie between the guys. But yeah, I just think Čolak, this is the best universe possible in which he signed. I think the last time I was on here was a month ago, and we were discussing the comments from, I think it was Mark Haitley or someone else, saying that he's not that great after the Livingston game. And we had mentioned the fact that he is a player whose performance is indicative of a side who, they create chances, he'll score them, and if they don't, he won't. So he's sort of the indicator of if a team's playing well. And the fact that we're not playing on all cylinders makes me excited to see if we'll see him score a few more. And I do think this might be a personal opinion. It does kind of annoy me when we've seen back-to-back games, Gio take Čolak off when he's been on a brace. And I think that's something small. And I don't think it's to say he's an amazing professional, because most professionals would accept that and go off. But I do think if he had a screw loose, he might have been angry, said something on Instagram or Twitter, or reacted negatively. But he's gone off calm, he's clapped the fans and welcomed Morelos onto the pitch. And obviously he's got a goal or two in his minutes. But I think that's testament for a player who sees himself as a part of a team as opposed to an individual. Even though he has so many personal motivations, he'll want to be in the Croatia squad for the World Cup. And I certainly think he's sort of putting his bid in quite well. And I hope to see him in Qatar. Two Rangers players for Croatia over dead set. Establish that everyone's going to be cheering for them.
David, the goal number 2 came from the penalty. Keen to discuss whether Nick Walsh was right or not. Declan Gallagher penalised for the foul on Čolak. I've watched that a few times, and I have to say I'm unconvinced. I'm not convinced at all. It's almost, I can't see who gets to the ball first. I can't see if Declan Gallagher gets to it first or whether Čolak gets to it first. The direction of the ball tells me that maybe Declan Gallagher gets to it first, but hardly any players claiming for it. So in the soft category, I would say, and one that really pisses off the Tims, so one that I'm really enjoying.
Well, that's always a bonus. I must confess, where I sit on the ground, I sit just below you, the tier below you, over opposite corner, and it looks soft. Like you say, you always look for the reaction of the players. The fact that the St Mirren defenders weren't up in arms and surrounding Nick Walsh, perhaps tells a story. So I think it's just one of the ones that I've not seen it back, so I can't. Can you possibly comment on whether it's a glaring error by Nick Walsh, or whether Declan Gallagher was hard done by? But it's in the past now. There've been penalties that we've been denied this season. There was even a penalty shout yesterday that we should have got, which just completely passed without any mention. There was absolutely no. There was never an inkling for the officials that there could possibly a penalty shout, which you would like to think when when VAR's introduced shortly, that's going to get highlighted. But we've got enough oddball penalties have been coming against us. So to get one, if it was maybe dubious going the other direction, then it's just maybe a case of people perhaps incorrectly say that the luck evening itself right over the course of the season.
Patrick, James Tavernier makes it 2-0 from the spot, and I think it's worthwhile having a conversation about Tav, because he's another one that I think this season hasn't looked himself. We should sort of point out we're basing that on a supreme level of performance, and when you consider his performances in the Europa League last season, just incredible. But he just hasn't looked quite at it this season. That said, he's still got decent stats. 3 goals, 4 assists from 9 league games. But there's just something. The thing I'm noticing now is his distribution at times is a bit ropey. He's just doesn't look at it.
Yeah, I'm glad you sort of preface the whole thing about the relative to how good Tavernier is. So if he looks a bit out of shape, he's still putting in like a 7.5 out of 10 performance. But yeah, I think it's sort of indicative of the most of the team aren't playing to sort of what we expected them off the basis of last year or the year prior. I think Lundstrom's probably another example. He set the bar so high with his last 6 months of the season prior, much like Tav. Goldson a bit, although he's looked really good and solid in these last 2 games. No coincidence, I think, as soon as Ben Davies has been sort of properly assimilated in the team, Goldson's benefited a lot. But yeah, I would agree. I think he looks less secure in possession, Tavernier. I think it's a difficult challenge for him against Liverpool because he was sort of our outball. He was always the guy we play it to and expect him to ping a pass or progress the ball up. And when you do that at Anfield against a team who pack their midfield so well, because they were able to sort of, their forwards work so hard that they were able to sort of play in the midfield and progress upwards. That was always going to be an uphill battle. And when ultimately, albeit difficult, he did fail. But I think he hasn't looked perhaps the world's best player in Scotland undisputed like he did last season. I do think, though, obviously, the players in front of him have been chopping and changing both in that right centre mid and on that right wing area, and no one's really made it their own. Especially the right wing is the big discourse, but the right centre mid, we had Lawrence playing quite well there, but he got injured, and then there's been a chopping and changing of not just the player but the role. Sometimes we'll see a more defensive player there, sometimes we'll see a more progressive, or even sometimes we'll see like a 10 there. So there's a lot of uncertainty around him, but I don't think this is a decline sort of based on his age, or this will be how he is for the next 2 or 3 years. I just think it's a sort of rough patch that represents the team as a whole. And hopefully these past 2 games and a good performance against Liverpool might be the perfect launching pad for him to get back into the classic Tav. And if there's anything we know he does well, is score a penalty in Europe. So we can hope for one of those come Wednesday.
Wednesday night, yeah. Penalty Rangers. David, Alan McGregor, I think again, another one that I think we need to look at, a feeling that he passed his best this time last season. I think already at this point last season, there had been a couple of errors that had been costly and led to his dropping points and question marks over him. When he came on in the last minute in the cup final, I think we all felt that was a swan song and he was on his way out the club. But we've retained him for another year. But McLaughlin was staying in. McLaughlin was taking the number 1 position. He's came back in for the last few games. McGregor, I would say he looks like he's at a higher level than he was last season. He had a key save yesterday. I should point out, I don't think that if Mark O'Hara had scored, it should have counted. I thought there was a foul on Tav in the box when the cross came in. But it's a vital save. It's at 2-0, and if that goes in, the jitters start, the crowd turns, and all of a sudden we find ourselves, especially when you consider how Celtic won the game earlier in the day, they were seconds away from dropping points and they get that sort of last gasp winner. That sort of thing at Motherwell, last season when we were 2-0 up, cruising, and then we draw 2 each. So it's a vital save, and I would argue that this season he's looked like his performance levels, from what we've seen of him so far anyway, are higher than what he was producing last year.
Yeah, I would agree, Colin. I think the McGregor of the 55 season is came back to the fore. I think Alan's got presence. he's capable of great saves. You know, well documented in the years. Capable of world class stops. Something that sprang to mind immediately was the penalty save from I forget the fellow's name. The Red Star game at Ibrox. That penalty save was outstanding. And that came at a time when he was going through a rough patch of form in the league. But it looks that he's back to his concentrated best. There was a ball that was flashed into the box yesterday where it looked, but the kind of bad side of Alan McGregor's game where he's kind of not quite rooted, but it looks as if he's indecisive in terms of whether he's going to come for a ball or not. And that's his Achilles heel. Obviously he's very, very close to the end of his time as a professional goalkeeper. So it's no new as that. But we've got to concentrate on the good parts of his game. And I think that I can remember stood outside Ibrox talking to you, Nick, back in March, and it was when Alan's form was not a big talking point. And I more or less place my faith in him, saying that he's the best goalkeeper we've got, and he's still the best goalkeeper we've got as far as I'm concerned. John McLaughlin's a good goalkeeper, but he's not a great goalkeeper, and I don't think he'll ever will be a great goalkeeper. Whether Robbie McCrory can become a great goalkeeper in the fullness of time obviously remains to be seen. And Robbie's incidentally he's signed up for
a new deal,
3 years, so which is good news. Which obviously means that the club have got plans from it. And the lad, I would assume, wouldn't he sign a new 3-year deal, given his age, if he was going to be, readily accept the fact he's going to be the number 2 goalkeeper. So, but that's an aside. But to get back to Alan, he produced a couple of good stops yesterday. Obviously, the Mark O'Hara chance in particular. Obviously, had a good game on Tuesday night. One save I thought was exceptional. The others were, for him, routine, even though, certain commentators or observers may say, they were very, very good saves and he kept Rangers in the game and all that. But, it's kind of bread and butter to a goalkeeper at Alan McGregor level. So I don't think you're going to see John McLaughlin anytime soon if Alan McGregor maintains that level of form, Colin, to really come to the point.
Yeah, he has. I think he's back to his best. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. And that was a vital save, although I maintain if it had went in, it shouldn't have counted, but that's kind of by the by. Another defensive man we need to talk about, Patrick, is Ben Davies. That sort of left-sided centre-half position has been a bit of a problem. We've let what's the boy we let go to QPR?
Balogun.
Hollander's injured. We've let Balogun go. We've had Sands playing in there for cover. We've just never been able to nail it down. Davies has been sitting there for a few months now, and for whatever reason, just not been playing. But he's come in the last 2 or 3 games. He got another 60 minutes yesterday, and I just think he looks really assured. And I think him and Connor Goldson look like they're a solid defensive unit. When you think back the whole time that Connor Goldson's been here, the amount of partners that he's had. I know it's early days, but I'm looking at this thinking this could be the guy. This could be the rock solid partnership that we've been looking for this whole time.
No, I would 100% agree. Obviously, it is early days, but I think he is perhaps the most jigsaw-like perfect fit with Goldson. Because if you look back, I think the only person you could contend with is perhaps Hollander over the 55 season. But even then, Hollander's a good traditional defender. But he has deficiencies in possession and he is quite slow. And Goldson has a good physical profile, but he isn't the quickest either. Not to say he's slow by any imagination, but I just think Davies provides both the symmetry with the left-footed and build-up. So when we're in possession, because to be fair, our centre-backs obviously have a responsibility to defend and make sure we keep the clean sheet domestically. We get 67% of possession, so they're spending more time on the ball than trying to take the ball off the other players. And Davies is great at that, and he provides a bit of what Goldson does. Goldson's a great long passer. I mean, his trademark diagonals or stuff of legend. They're great with to the wingers, but he's not the greatest sort of breaking short lines passer to a 6 to Lundstrom. He's quite, as you say, horseshoey. He contributes to that. He'll usually just play it to Tav or he'll play it long. Whereas Davies does really well to sort of find our defensive mid and quickly sort of break that first line of an opposition press. You saw him quite a lot just slide it into lunchroom against St Mirren, and that's a lot more of a consistent and repeatable action than just playing it long every time. You can build something with that, and I think he provides that perfectly. Albeit, obviously, we've taken quite a while for him to get involved. That's sort of a characteristic of most of our summer signings this summer. Obviously, the reasons are undisclosed, and he's due his privacy for that. But yeah, obviously, I think the fact that he's been taken off, it works really well. In fact, so he's being better and getting the minutes, and we can see Leon King play even more, which I think is just a win-win for everyone. So he'll quickly accumulate minutes, get more experience both in the Champions League and domestically, whilst Davies quickly settles in. And so far, so good.
On to the man of the moment, David, Fash the Bash, Sakala. He's came in for Kent. And I think we can all agree he's had a difficult time recently. He was responsible for conceding a goal in the League Cup game a few weeks ago. He's just looked, it looked like he was ready to be dropped. Kind of how Kent was looking like he was ready to be dropped. Quite erratic performances. We all know he's direct. We all know he can cause issues, but it didn't surprise me that he's went through this period of not getting in the team. And I think you have to congratulate him, because he seems to have this really positive attitude, wants to keep going. He's hard to not like Fashion Sakala. And I thought yesterday, he's so direct, committing defenders, running at them, causing them problems. And I was delighted for him, delighted that he got his goal. An argument to say that he could maybe have been man of the match. It was just refreshing to see someone, given some of the turgid performances we've watched over the last few weeks, just seen someone wanting to go at defenders and beat them, and that causes panic. Once you've beat one defender, you're dragging others out of position, and I just don't think we've seen enough of that with Rangers over the last few weeks. So it was refreshing to see, and he, as I said, he's such a likeable guy. It's you like to see people like that doing well and coming on and doing well.
Yeah, that's Fashion's efforts were rewarded yesterday in the second half, Colin. I think to cut the guy a bit of slack, he's on a high to nothing. He's not a winger. He never will be, in my opinion. But the manager and his wisdom obviously doesn't see him as a centre forward, or doesn't the tactic of the team will not suit Fashion style of play. What little we've seen of him as a centre forward in his time at Ibrox, I think it'd be fair to surmise that he'd possibly be the type of striker to play in the shoulder of the centre half, and they'd be looking for balls threaded through for him to run onto. But we don't play like that, so he's never really going to get too many chances during that game where he can utilise that skill set, if you like. So the manager's decided to deploy him on the right-hand side and try and encourage him to be more of a wide striker, if that fits the bill. Yes, he's very erratic. His first touch isn't the best, but you seen yesterday when he set up Cholak's second goal, which was a fantastic goal, really well taken. But you seen his touch. His touch was good. He knocks it inside, and then he accelerates. His speed over that initial 5 yards, which is crucial in any level of football, especially at the top level. Came to the fore, and he was really. He looked good, but there's guys. He'll not be the first, and he'll not be the last that can tend to flatter to deceive. Can he put a string of performances like that together? That remains to be seen, and it's no easy if the manager's maybe bringing you in for a couple of games or bringing you in for a half, and then you don't get action for the next couple of games. So Fashion's big challenge is to make sure that he's in the manager's, he's foremost in the manager's thoughts when it comes to picking the front three. Whether players like Brian Kent and or Rowie Matondo, or whether it may be Scott Arfield, depending on certain opposition and how they set up and deploy their players, means that in the next run of games that Fashion can get up ahead of steam and get his confidence going, where his first touch, or his second touch isn't a tackle as much, and he starts to bed himself in and get confident and start to show what he can do. That hopefully will be the case. It'd be great if if he come on in Wednesday night and took the game to Liverpool, because obviously last Tuesday night we were sadly lacking in actually putting their backline under pressure. I mean, the fella Kostas Tsimikas, I mean, he looked like a tremendous left back the other night. He wasn't put under any pressure, so you'd like to think that in Wednesday night that maybe Fashion could give something to think about. Yes, he took his goal well, set up a goal, and you'd like to think that there could be more to come from him. I think another thing that might work in his favour is that Gio's went public and said that it was never his thoughts to move him on. As a player, it's maybe no featured a lot, and maybe his doubts about whether the manager rates you. Even if you still have that, kind of lingering doubts in the back of your mind, to hear the manager come out and say that publicly, it's got to be a boost for you. So hopefully we can see, what Fashion can produce. And let's face it, we've been so underwhelming as an attacking force. Antonio Joe, like I said, we've been scratching for some kind of form and forward fluency and combination play and such like. So Fashion's performance yesterday might signal the fact that maybe he's the guy to step up and say, right, I'm going to make this position my own this season, and I'm going to force my way into the manager's plan.
I think we should give Morelos a special mention for the goal as well. I think it's obvious that he's had much publicised issues in terms of his, discipline and all that kind of thing. He was out of the team for a bit. He's struggling to get back into the team because Cholak's scoring so many goals. But I would argue that, his attitude seems a bit better, and it was a good assist, the ball inside. So, yeah, a special mention for him. Patrick, on to Rabbi Matondo, another start for him, another one where there's been alleged, issues with his discipline and all that kind of thing, and taking out the squad for a bit. Started last week at Tynecastle, started again yesterday. I don't think he had a bad game, but I don't think he had a great game. And I genuinely feel that the sort of wider areas in an attacking sense are killing us at the moment. As we've discussed earlier on, Kent's out of form, Scott Wright probably, I like Wright, but you get a good game out of him, a bad game out of him. Matondo's not really got going since he's arrived. It's an area that I think we really struggle in, and it would be good to see this guy get up and running. I think we all felt we'd signed a good player when he arrived. We've just not seen it yet. There was wee hints yesterday that things are improving. A good effort off the post, but again, like Ryan Kent, we're needing a wee bit more out of him, I think.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to talk at length and try and convince someone that he's hit the ground running. But I think we can rationalise and sort of break down reasons why he hasn't, per se. We've just had and not just us, but an entire Rangers fan have had a discourse on why we should drop Kent or not. So I think it shows that left wing as a whole, we're having people struggling regardless of who we put there. And that's down to a multiplicity of reasons. I think Borna Barca just played well this season, but I just think his style, it sort of limits the ability and the efficacy of the left winger, albeit you might say it's a valuable trade-off because he has been playing well, he's been putting in some good balls. But I think Matondo looked quite lively for the 10 minutes against Liverpool, so you were hoping perhaps he could bring that and prolong that to 90 minutes against St Mirren, but he wasn't able to do so, to be fair. But I equally don't think he was terrible. I think the best he's played so far was the 20-25 minutes ago against Kilmarnock. He managed to assist then, and he's sort of petered away since then. Obviously, there were some rumours about discipline. I don't think it's been disclosed publicly or whatever, but there was a reason why he was dropped. But yeah, I think there was a lot of pressure on him when he arrived, just because the fact we thought we had signed a right winger and we haven't done so in ages. He's not really a right winger, just naturally. He's right-footed, so he's better placed on the left, and he could even play a bit as a striker. But he's still young. We didn't spend a fortune on him, so I do think there was this yearn for us to finally have this right winger who would be the contemporary to Kent on that wing, and we'd be perfect, and we'd have this dangerous front three. And he isn't that, at least not yet. But I do understand why people are a bit maybe not concerned, but a bit bored with watching him, because he is quick and he does have a nice physical profile and the tools, but he's just not putting it together. He kind of falls short, similar to Colin, in a way in which he isn't able to sort of connect his movements that well because his touch isn't great. so he isn't able to sort of beat a player, or if he does, his pass will be misplaced, or he runs too quick and then he takes a poor touch or something along those lines. But I do think as time goes and we play better, and I think as we advance for similar to into the side, we might see Matondo or whoever's playing that left wing benefit greatly. And the best thing I would hope for is we see both Kent and Matondo dueling out for that side. Because at least on the basis of last performance, right wing seems quite decent with Sakala, but as we know with him, he's fairly inconsistent. But I think the best thing is for us to give him some faith, allow him to play, but don't give him, but obviously trade him off with Kent. And hopefully if one of them starts firing, the other one will realise I have to do that as well. Because I'm at a club that demands that there is at least the one who starts puts in a performance. So hopefully we'll see some sort of mutual recognition. But right now, both are quite misfiring.
David, Patrick mentioned Borna there, and I think left back something we need to look at. I didn't see Radvan yesterday just as he was coming on. That's when I had to leave because of that train situation. So a wee bit frustrated. I never got to see him. I read the match report today and just having a wee look in social media, it would appear that he'd done okay. There's been a lot of frustration that we've not seen this boy. Spent a lot of money on him, 5 million. And I think we all felt that was an area that needed address, because Borna had sort of, shrunk from the player that he was. There was that night at Celtic Park and a couple of other nights. The first game this season, he was culpable for a goal against Livingston. But I would have to say, the guy who sits in front of me, Stuart, made a really, really good point. He's saying, Radvan's quite young. I think he's one for the future. And you know what? See if we sign a player at 5 million. And it actually brings the best out of the guy that's holding that position, and all of a sudden you can't get your new signing in. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Depends on your point of view, Colin. Borna's like, I think it's fair to say that Borna Barisic has lost a yard of pace, and that has diminished his output. I think another thing you've got to preface, anytime you speak about Borna Barisic, and to an extent James Tavernier, neither are natural fullbacks. They're no defenders. Neither. Borna Barisic is a converted winger. So despite his physical prowess, he's not naturally inclined to throw his body in where it hurts. And I think that allied to maybe his positional awareness when he's facing, maybe a cross coming into the opposite side of the pitch, that his defensive awareness is clearly exposed. But with the signing of Radvan Yilmaz, I think it's fair to say that his levels have went up. Certainly his crossing has been something like back to what we were used to in previous seasons. I think that his overall defensive play in terms of jockeying defenders has improved from certainly. There was periods last season, especially the game at Parkhead, where to say that he was ripping people's knitting would be an understatement. So he looks to have kind of mended his ways slightly there, but is he ever going to be a class back from a defensive perspective? That's open to debate. I mean, I think I also don't think that we're going to see the left back that we've seen in previous seasons. Certainly 55. There was a period in that season where his defensive work was really, really good. And even at the season before that, in moments where his defensive work was good. Yes, he's got foibles. Like sometimes he lets crosses come into the box unnecessarily. And Alan McGregor and some of his teammates have done their nut arm. You can physically see it on the pitch where they're actually berating him, saying you can stop that cross coming into the box. So is he going to improve that to a significant level where he's going to be talked about as a potential signing for another club? I mean, obviously a couple of years ago he was linked with Roma and moved to Serie A. I know a lot of us thought that he was assured to move on, but he's still here. Even last season, I cast my mind back to the 1-0 game against Celtic. He went off the pitch and it looked for all intents and purposes he was going.
He was away
to the support. So,
yeah.
But he's still here and he's playing well. Brad Van Yilmaz came on yesterday, and I would say highlighted some of the things that a lot of fans are still got a problem with Barnabas, insofar as Radvan put through 2 lovely balls yesterday, and Morelos was running the channels, and he looked to pass the ball forward. Now, again, this may well come down to the tactics deployed by the manager, but Bonner always seems to be reluctant to go beyond, to overlap, and always looks to keep the ball and pass the ball backwards. Now, some players will obviously still want to keep possession, but obviously look to move the ball forward. And Radvan, to his credit yesterday, lifted his head and made 2 telling balls forward. And that kind of is quite glaring for a lot of supporters, because they'll see like, geez, a pass went forward for once. And that, it remains to be seen whether Barisic can take that facet of his game and incorporate it more into his play. But he certainly came back to form for some of the kind of good performances he put in last season. I think that's without question, Colin. So let's hope that the Bonner can continue to improve.
Patrick, in terms of like the overall day's work, looking at the league table, Celtic were really close to dropping points yesterday. The game before the international break, it looked like we were going in 5 points behind. Celtic suffer that defeat at St Mirren, all of a sudden it's 2. In the first 2 games back, we nearly draw level with them. They're seconds away from dropping points, and we can catch them in points. We've chipped away at the goal difference. It's so that even although we're not fluent in terms of performance, so there's still issues, and we're not convinced by what we're seeing. We're in a really healthy condition, actually. You consider where we were sort of 3 or 4 weeks ago. Celtic were battering teams. We were struggling to get victories. This feeling that we're 5 points behind, 1 more draw, 1 more defeat. All of a sudden, it could be not over, but it becomes a real mountain to climb. All of a sudden, we're 2 points behind, and slowly but surely catch them. And a feeling that also that this team could go up 2 or 3 gears.
Yeah, I think fundamentally we're just 1 game off of a good run, or establishing a sort of 5 or 6 game positive run after the Celtic game. And I think that's really important, given the fact that we have this incredibly condensed schedule pre-World Cup, and that's almost that. Not obviously the last few seasons we've had the winter break, or we haven't had the winter break, or it's been moved and all that, but that's been the sort of middle juncture in the season. But we almost have this impromptu break in which acts as maybe a 40% line, so that will offer. So we get there, we're X. And obviously with, maybe best not to mention that Callum McGregor's injury for Celtic, and he's maybe not their best player, I probably think he is, but he's definitely the most important player, and that'll make a massive difference in how they play. I think post the last 2 games, you've seen Celtic only win by 1 goal and lose to St Mirren. So I think the next 6 to 7 games obviously are incredibly important, given the fact that we're trending upwards. They might have a stumble or 2 more in their engine, just because of the fact that they don't have their leader and their sort of talisman in McGregor. But yeah, I think it's certainly a lot better than it was a month ago. I think a month ago was quite toxic, perhaps because that coincided with both us being battered in Europe, and that was almost our sort of foil in the last few years. Pre-55 and post-55 was when we weren't playing that well. We were still doing well in Europe, and there was this upwards mobility, and we're like, we'll continue to do so. It's a money maker. Our players are getting a nice shop window, and those are the best nights in football, or the European nights. But we've had an absence of them, albeit I know this is a discourse, I'd always rather be in the Champions League getting hammered than be in the Europa League and winning group games just because of the money. That's my opinion of it. But yeah, I think it is a good position. Obviously, we are hamstrung by the injuries. We have a ton of them. And it seems like post-World Cup, we'll have quite a few people coming back. I know Roof's back in training. Alex Lowry is also back in training. Hadji was targeting post-World Cup. Helander, there's limited communications on that, but you would think hopefully around then. Suter maybe as well. He was benchmarked as post-World Cup. So I do think there's the fact that if we can get a really nice run going together, we'll have like a real nice breath optimism going into the World Cup. We can watch that and enjoy that with the Rangers part of our minds being sort of satisfied that we can come back and look to give it a big go. And I do think more so than most seasons, the January transfer window will provide a really important juncture, and kind of who wins that transfer window will go a long way to seeing who wins the league. But we're still far away from that. But it is nice to talk about the idea of us being in a title race and winning the league, whereas a month ago, if you'd thought that, someone might be like, no, we'll lose the league by 15 to 20 to Celtic. So it is nice to be able to have that discussion without being told it's borderline lunacy.
Before I move on to the next thing on the agenda, guys, I need to mention our partners at Zenith Coins, who produce the official Rangers Club coin. Each gold-plated coin has a unique serial number engraved on the outer rim and comes complete with a Rangers presentation box and certificate of authenticity. Famous Rangers supporters such as Alan McCoy, Derek Johnson, Marvin Andrews, Tom Stoltman, Gordon Ramsay, all own one of these collections. Zenith has also produced a 150th anniversary collection, which is limited to 1,872 sets worldwide. They are being released in small batches. They celebrate 5 iconic milestones in Rangers history, which are the founding fathers, Ibrox Stadium, the 1972 Cup Winners' Cup win in Barcelona, 9 in a row and 55 league titles. You can get more info on that at www.zenithcoins.com. Right, David, on to a wee item that came in through the week there. The club announced that David Graham, the head of communications, had resigned, had left the club, citing family reasons. And I was just keen to sort of get your views on you know, how you think he's impacted on the club in the 2 years. I would have to say, when he was appointed, given his background, you know, the DUP councillor thing, all that sort of stuff, I kind of looked at it and thought, you know what, there's people in this country, it doesn't matter how good this guy is at his job, they're not going to let him be good at his job. You know, just that background is going to give them enough to for this to be a negative sort of appointment. And I would say, I don't want to say it was completely negative, but I don't think he's improved the sort of communications and the PR side of the club significantly, if at all. I think this has been an Achilles heel for the club for, I think you're going back to the 90s, to be honest with you. This just seems to be an issue that's continually been a problem for Rangers. So how do you view his period at the club?
Oh, that's a tough one to put my finger on. Succinctly, Colin. David Graham, I think he's first of all, I think he's going to hide into nothing. I think that the media landscape in this country, I think his links to the DUP, I think he was, there was an inference in the media that, you know, he was somehow, you know, he wasn't quite, you know, worthy of the position or that. You know, there was connotations that they were needless. He's obviously had a background with Davy Edgar and Heart and Hand, and prior to taking up the role with the club, and then obviously we've seen the move to fan media. Which has been, I think it's been brought. I think it's been received differently from certain aspects of the Rangers support. Put it this way, David, he knows how to put a tweet out on the stroker never. That'll be missed, and he was quite good at doing that. I think that I genuinely think that the kind of the approach and the strategy of the board, the club management, you know, I don't think that he was necessarily the director per se. I don't think he was directing strategy. I think it was very much a case of, you know, this is how we would like things to run, and he was, you know, he was just the operational director in a communication sense, if that makes sense. So I think it's very hit and miss whether his tenure can legitimately be viewed as a success. I don't think he's, you know, whether it's entirely down to David Graham himself, or whether it's a combination of other actors in the process. I think that Rangers' PR situation hasn't been significantly improved to the levels that we would, as lay persons looking on from afar, would like to have seen that the whole PR machine move on in a positive sense for the average Rangers supporter. I think that he's, latterly there in the last couple of weeks, when all the kind of noise regarding Giovanni Van Bronckhorst and whether he was under his job was coming under increasing pressure, especially the results in Europe. To come out with an appeal to the supporters about how remiss they've been in terms of communication, to do that and hide the interview on YouTube. Before it hit the YouTube channel behind a paywall. It doesn't really reflect very well. But is that done purely down to David Graham? I've got my doubts. So, I don't think the guy's certainly not been an unmitigated disaster, put it that way. I think he's maybe just found how should we put it, the kind of Scottish, or maybe the Glasgow media-based media landscape a bit more difficult to navigate than maybe he's anticipated coming into the job. And I seem to recall that Holcomb were still the PR people for Celtic when he took the job, and they've obviously moved on. And there's not been enough of a swing where a kind of balance in terms of the PR battle. I don't think that's been achieved in David's tenure, and I think that remains to be seen whether the board are up for redressing the balance and whether they can get someone in who is not necessarily competent enough to redress that balance, but has the gravitas to do so. And I think that stopping short of employing probably a London PR firm that's going to cost money, I think there's other priorities within the business structure, and I think as long as that's the case, then I think us as fans will be continuing to have this conversation about the PR lacking, which you rightly allude to, has possibly been an Achilles heel of the Rangers operation. You think back years and years ago that John Gregg was put in charge of the Rangers PR, and that doesn't seem to have moved on significantly in the time since. And whether it does or not, it obviously remains to be seen, Colin.
Patrick, in terms of where the club goes from here, in terms of a replacement, I mean, I think some of the issues that David highlights here are valid. I mean, I don't think he's been an unmitigated disaster, as David put it. But I don't think you could call his term a success either. And there's the sort of in-house media now, with the fan media based thing, and I mean, I think that creates an echo chamber. I don't think that's the best model, but I also understand why they've went down that route, because we don't have a compliant media up here. I mean, Rangers and the media just do not get on, so it kind of feels like Rangers are stuck, between a rock and a hard place on this issue. So is that maybe the way forward? We actually bring in, an organisation that, I don't know, a London PR firm saying that has no connections with the club and has no connections with the mainstream media up here, and just to try and wipe the sort of slate clean and move forward in a more positive way, because it just seems to be a repetitive thing, this thing with the PR. It just never seems to improve. And some of the things over the years, some of the stuff with his predecessor, what do you call him, James Traynor, at times it's been... It looks quite amateurish, I would say, some of the stuff that's come out from the PR side, and we need to fix it, because I think I saw a good example recently of what I would consider good PR. You had that issue with Ange when he needlessly had a go at that interpreter in the press conference, snapped at him, took his face off. And it's a wee bit of the mask slipping moment, because he had the press eating out his hands. We're all getting told what a wonderful guy he was. And there was a wee moment there when you thought, well, actually, he's maybe not that nice guy. He's maybe not as nice as what we thought. And the following day, there was a soft piece in the paper about, how he was so chuffed to be the Celtic manager, and how he was really sad that his dad hadn't seen him become the Celtic manager. A real personal sort of soft, angled sort of piece. That was obviously placed there to sort of take away the harshness of what he'd done to that interpreter. Just jangle with the silvery thing in front of the press and say, don't look at Ange biting the face off a reporter. Look at this, he's a nice guy. And I just sort of looked at that. The Rangers are incapable of that, or they seem to be incapable of it. They don't seem to be on the front foot when it comes to PR. So where do we go from here? Because I think this has been a problem for 20, 25, 30 years. We need to find a solution to this, I think.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a discussion about how our just position and our lack thereof, or free agency or lack thereof, sort of engenders our ability to, or inability to run an effective PR firm, or to run PR at the club per se effectively. There's a predatory media who enjoy and make substantial money reporting about us, whether it be truthfully, bending the truth or whatever, which seems to be more so recently, or contemporary issue. Obviously, we've had issues with the BBC, and it seems the majority of papers. So there have been a lot of burnt bridges and merited burnt bridges on our behalf, and that has led to us have not to the sort of situation in which we use fan media a lot as our ability to disseminate material, which is fine in a way because it sort of allows people to have familiar faces sharing them, or information sharing through familiar faces, but also does limit their own ability to act because they are fundamentally fans, and I think they will want to maintain a positive or a mutualist relationship with the club, so they won't bend over backwards to them because they still are free agents and have their own ability to say what they want, but they will, unlike some sort of large conglomerate like Sky Sports, whatever, who will sort of necessitate a relationship with the club, they will have to play on the club's terms as opposed to the opposite way. As for a replacement, this is something I have very limited sort of expertise on, but I would like to see someone or the club take a step into the future and embrace the modernity. I don't want us to be a club who posts 10, 15 videos a day on TikTok and Instagram, but I do think there is a large market out there for an international base, for a big club, an international club fundamentally. And the fact that we perhaps only have one Twitter account, and it's an English one, is a market that we're not capturing. My own one that I always don't like is the sort of lack of transparencies around injuries and what's happened with the team. And I think that's just one thing in a maze of sort of mistakes and perhaps in the last few years. But that's something that really grinds my gears when we don't see much being discussed about injuries per se. But I think any move forward could be positive, but I do think embracing something different, just because the sort of mode of bringing one individual in and asking them to run by a proxy to the board of directors hasn't worked. But then again, we have to consider how difficult it would be to work in the landscape of the sort of predatory media we have here.
Quickly, David, because I've noticed we've kind of run over here. Obviously, Liverpool on Wednesday night, big night in the Champions League. That game last Tuesday, I don't think we ever looked like we had the belief that we were going to do anything, really. And I say that looking at that Liverpool team, beat again today, looked vulnerable again on the sort of wider areas, at the full-back areas. I would just like to see that a Rangers team have a bit of belief in what they can do here. I genuinely think, this Liverpool team, I know there's a golfing class. I know they're better players. But I think if we go out there with a bit of belief and a bit of determination and the sort of, and maybe put in the sort of level of performances that seen us get to a European final just a few months ago, then we have a chance. Because the way I look at it, we need to, if we've got any hope of reaching the Europa, because obviously the next stages of the Champions League are already gone, any chances of finishing third, I think we need something on Wednesday. We don't get anything on Wednesday, then that's it. I think we're toast.
Well, first of all, I think to start on a negative note, I think Europe's going this season. I don't think there's any way we're going to finish third in the group. So sorry to say that. However, I'm glad we got proved wrong. Wednesday night, I think, excuse me, first and foremost, last Tuesday night, we showed Liverpool far too much respect. I think that's a given. And I think if we repeat that on Wednesday night, we deserve all we get. I think we need to be in their faces. As you rightly point out, Colin, what's happened to the Rangers side that played so well against Dortmund and played so well against Leipzig? And Generally had belief. Don't forget, against Braga, we were, and Leipzig, we were down in the first leg and came back and won. And if we can't channel that energy, that motivation, that belief into a 90 minutes against Liverpool, then, it's all very well qualifying for the Champions League from a financial perspective, but, from a playing perspective, there was no qualifying for it. And that's what we need. And our Rangers supporters saying that, it's a sad day. Look, I agree with you entirely. They can be got at the back. Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold picked up an injury the day against Arsenal. Whether that sees him ruled out and Joe Gomez comes in or somebody else comes in, I don't know. The Greek left back, assuming he plays, he can be got it. There's no two ways about it. He's well suspect at the back. And I'd like to think that, we could give Joe Matip and Virgil van Dijk something to think about in Wednesday night. But it's all down to the players. I think that the manager, he seems to have his basic way of playing it. Yeah, he might, drop to three at the back and stick Lundstram into the back line. But generally speaking, the tactic doesn't change all that much. And I think that when the two Liverpool centre-halves are given such an easy ride as they were on Tuesday night, I think that sets the scene for the whole side, and it puts added pressure on the likes of Ryan Kent to magic something out of thin air. And if the ball doesn't get knocked into the centre forward, whether it's Morelos or Colin, doesn't stick and kind of ball play from that, then it's going to be a long, hard night. It doesn't help when guys like Malik Tillman and Stephen Davis are passengers. So, the team selection is going to be key for the start. Yeah. But you'd like to think that the players are going to have a bit of fire in their bellies in Wednesday night. The crowd, I hope, bring their A game. The Napoli game, we've been to recent European games where the atmosphere was electric inside Ibrox. The Napoli game was a reasonable atmosphere, but it's nothing like what it could be. Yeah. Hopefully on Wednesday night, the fans turn up in good voice, and it's going to be difficult because obviously supporters are going along to the game knowing that essentially because of two reverses, especially the one at Amsterdam, it's already consigned as to also runs in the group, and it's a bit of pill to swallow from a supporter's perspective. But hopefully, we can maybe just put that to one side and take the game in its own merits. It's a battle of Britain, if you can term it as such. It's a home game at Ibrox, and if the crowd can get off it, hopefully lift the fans, and the fans can then lift the players can then lift the fans. Then hopefully we might get a Dodge be a positive result. Hopefully a win, but I'll take a draw. As long as we don't embarrass ourselves by basically falling into the same charge we did last Tuesday night. I know the manager said that these Champions League games are improving us, but it's easy to say that. It's better to actually put a performance in the part, and no better time than Wednesday night against Liverpool to go and show what we can do, Colin.
Yeah, and we'll have some content out on Tuesday night with regards to the Liverpool game. We'll obviously have the show, the previous show next week, previewing the Motherwell game, and we'll be back next Sunday. And so that's it. That's all we've got time for tonight. We're slightly overrun. So a big thanks to David and to Patrick there for their contributions. Great stuff. The show was live tonight. We're live on the Sunday night, but it will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, all your usual places, Spotify, all that. As I said to you, we'll have a few shows out this week, so look out for those. In the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. And until next time, bye for now.